to Boney M at the moment.
I think it's that album.
Oh my god. Oh, we're live. We're just having a good old chin wag. Hello everybody, what's up? We are live. I'm Kate Whitaker and I'm coming to you with youth music to chat to the incredible Hot Chip, who have long established themselves as purveyors of harmonic and accessible synth pop. I'm joined today by the incredible Doyle and Joe Goddard for a chat all about getting into the music industry. Don't forget, guys, throughout the live stream, you can pop your questions at the chat bar or you can tweet them at #AskHotChip. Hello, guys. How are we doing?
Hey. Great, thanks. How you doing?
Doing all right, thank you.
Your background's a bit cooler than mine. I think, are you guys in the studio right now?
We are. We're in our studio here on Brick Lane in East London, and we've been working away today, Joe and I together, working up the sweat in the studio. And but yeah, we're taking a break to talk to you guys.
Oh, an amazing life. So do you want to just start by telling us a little bit about you and about your kind of music background? Al, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, yeah. I'm 40 years old now, and I've been a professional musician for, I don't know, like maybe nearly 20 years, I guess. And I was a classically trained musician. I used to play the cello. I still sometimes play. My mum asked me if I play my cello quite a lot. It's like a mum question, and so I say that I do, and I do, but it's quite occasional because I mostly play other instruments now, guitar, bass, keyboards, some percussion, and then have learned how to be an engineer, studio engineer as well. And I've been in Hot Chip since 2002, and I've been in LCD Sound System since 2006. Yeah. Wow,
incredible, Joe. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm a similar age to Al. Myself and the singer from Hot Chip, Alexis, we started Hot Chip when we were at secondary school, when we were about 16, in like southwest London in Putney. And yeah, we've been professionally doing it since we left uni, about when Al joined, about 2002. We've released a bunch of albums and toured around the world and have been having a lot of fun doing it, and kind of branching out now into producing other people's records as well. And we DJ very regularly around America and Europe, and yeah, so been having a great time.
Yeah, and I must first up, before we kick off with the questions, just congratulate you for your incredible Streamland gig, which you did just last week, I believe. It was a couple of weeks ago, 5th of September. How was that, with the whole social distance kind of vibe?
I mean, initially when we walked out on stage, it was a little bit strange because we were in a large like amusement park in Margate, but there was, you know, just a very small amount of people because people were distanced around the arena, so it kind of looked a little bit unusual to begin with. But everybody that was there in the flesh was having a great time throughout the gig, and yeah, more people were streaming it around the world, and it was actually very, very joyful for us to kind of play on music again, honestly.
Yeah, what a special thing to do for people as well. Yeah, go on, Al. Yeah.
I was just going to say that, you know, when we did talk to a few people that had gone, they were like, okay, well, this is the only live thing that I've seen this year, and it probably will be the only live thing that they've seen. They was letting it all hang out and just, you know, going to the gig as if it is your only chance to do that. It's quite a strange mentality, but that is the truth. I mean, unless you have these small socially distanced gigs, there probably isn't going to be very much else happening this year. So it felt very, very cool, very strange.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, good for you guys. So let's kick off with the first question of the evening. So the first question is, how did you guys get into the industry then? What kind of started you off?
Okay, so like there's a couple of things that I could talk about. While I was at uni, I went to actually, like a friend of mine kind of dragged me along to one of these kind of evenings where you chat to people that are already in industry. So it was like at a bar at uni, and there were professionals from different industries, and I kind of wasn't planning to go. A friend of mine took me along, and I got chatting to a woman who was a press officer at a record label in London, and she seemed really nice. And when I finished uni, I still had her email address, and I just emailed her and asked if I could do 2 weeks work experience at the record label. And it took a little while to kind of get sorted and get it kind of organized on their part. But then I went in, did 2 weeks, and then just tried to make myself as useful as possible at that time. I was helping out in the press department. And then when that 2 weeks finished, I asked if anybody else in any other department needed help. And I just tried to kind of hang around, basically, which lasted for a few months. And then eventually I got a job at this record label. And so, yeah, that's one way in which it kind of began. While I was working there, I was sharing Hot Chip's early music with people and seeing if anybody was interested. And at the same time, outside of this record label, Hot Chip were just playing as many gigs as we could around London, mostly in small pubs, and we'd been doing that for a few years, and so we were just working as hard as we could to kind of be noticed, honestly.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people get their start, isn't it? They just get a work experience. It's like a domino effect. It's like hi, I will do anything you need, I'm really helpful, you know, and it's just kind of snowballs from there, really, doesn't it? But it's mad that you guys have been so successful for so long.
Well, I mean, I guess the lucky thing that we had on our side is that I was from London, so it wasn't as if I had to kind of come down and then work for nothing for a few months, coming, you know, and paying rent and stuff. I stayed at my parents' house for a little while, so that made it a bit easier. But yeah, it's definitely a very good way to try and just make contacts, is to just offer up your services for whatever you can manage.
Yeah,
especially labels and, you know, smaller labels for sure are completely over. There's always so much to do. There's always more work than they have people to do it. So, you know, generally, if you are up for kind of doing anything, then you will probably get a chance at some point to do that, because there's always stuff that needs doing, basically.
And as a side note, if there's anybody at the right kind of age where they're looking for these kind of work experience placements, like if there's a way to get in touch, we could probably put those people in touch with various professionals at different labels that we're kind of friendly with now, if that would help, because sometimes it's difficult to kind of actually get that person's email address, as you know, as an starting point.
Yeah, wow, so kind of you. So the next question is, what artists have influenced your music throughout the years, and how has that kind of changed? Has that kind of changed over the years for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, my dad was kind of, whatever my dad listened to was kind of the biggest influence on me, and he listened to quite a lot of American artists like the Velvet Underground and Neil Young and Bob Dylan and stuff like that. But he also was a very big fan of dub reggae music, and I'm from Leeds, and there was like a quite big West Indian community in Leeds, and there was a very prominent radio station called Chapeltown FM. And they had a famous DJ called Mikey Dread that used to play on that station. And that was kind of like in my house, even though my dad's like a white Irish guy, he was totally not Chapeltown FM. That was the kind of what he liked to listen to. So it's quite a weird mix for me. And then, you know, sort of getting older, I met my friend Felix from Hot Chip at university, and we listened to a lot of kind of, you know, Aphex Twin and things like that, and then started going out to raves and listening to a lot of drum and bass music.
Oh yeah,
back in the 1990s. And then being in Hot Chip, we got into like various other kinds of dance music, and just have quite a range of things that we try and think about now when we're producing. But we also, I mean, I ended up being in LCD Sound System, but like when we first met those guys, they were quite influential on our sound, and also like on the way that we sort of attacked our live situation. And we ended up playing with Pat Mahoney, who's the original drummer for LCD. He came to play with us for some shows and ended up doing a whole tour with us. And because of that, we've ended up having drums in Hot Chip now in the live situation, and recording more of, you know, getting out of just being purely electronic and getting into some more sort of guitar, bass, drums kind of music as well. So it varies really. Like sometimes we just get really caught up in very electronic synthesizers and like drum machines and stuff like that. Sometimes we feel as though we want to get away from that, and sometimes we're doing something in between. So yeah, quite a lot going on.
Yeah, I think that's what we all love about your music as well, is particularly your new album. Some of it's very kind of psychedelic, calm, beautiful. And then you get some other tracks that are kind of more dancey, pop. And it's just such a an eclectic mix. I think people just really kind of follow the journey through. So let's take it back to the start then. When was your first gig as Hot Chip?
Well, yeah, myself and Alexis have been friends since we were 12 years old, since the beginning of secondary school, and we started to perform under the name Hot Chip just when there were kind of like opportunities for kind of school concerts. We would kind of put our names forward, and we called ourselves Hot Chip at that point, and it was very different musically. It would just often be like a guitar and a keyboard, and we would sing some of our favorite songs by other bands. So we covered songs by older groups, and we started to write our own songs as well. But the music was very much like a little bit folky and very much like a songwriter kind of duo. And that kind of slowly developed into something more electronic as the years passed. But yeah, I mean, it was probably in about like 1995 or 1996 that we first played under the name Hot Chip.
Wow, such a long time ago, but so incredible. So this one,
when you say that, like 95, and I guess we've got to remember that must feel like it's 1975 to most kids who are like, for us, that's what it would have been. And it's like, yeah, to think that that's what we sometimes forget that we have been around for a long time. But
when you do it, you love it. It's just, it flies. Yeah, definitely. So this one's more of a tech question. So this question is, I've heard you're split between several DAWs. Just for reference, that's digital audio workstations. So have you chosen a DAW that supports your own creative process, or is it just kind of just how things have naturally kind of panned out?
I mean, I think that's really like a mixture of both of those answers. Yeah, I've been working on a particular DAW called Cubase since I was at school, since I was a teenager, and that's followed me all the way through until today. We're working on the same program, and it's been updated obviously a number of times over those years, but it serves me well and it does what I need it to do. So my thinking about this is that although different DAWs do different things, particularly something like Ableton has a number of features that are super good for someone making dance music, and it's amazing. But I don't think it makes sense to kind of get too caught up in learning a new piece of software constantly. It's all of these pieces of software are very capable and very kind of complex, and you can make great music with any of them. So if you find something that you enjoy and you get into, it's totally possible to kind of just keep that through your career and keep working with it. I have certain kind of friends who kind of become obsessed with always learning new gear and never really get around to finishing music. And I would say one piece of advice from my perspective is it's really good to try to just keep kind of churning out as much music of your own as you can. Keep moving forward, even if a song is not entirely perfect, get it finished and move on to your next thing, So yeah, all of these bits of software are kind of good enough to do that.
Yeah, I think when you're sort of young, you do get very obsessed about the equipment and the sort of stuff that other musicians that you like use, and you're like, I've got to get that guitar and I've got to get that amp, or I've got to get that keyboard or that drum machine, or use that DAW or whatever. But you soon realize that it's much more about how you use those things, and the fact that they're just tools to do whatever you want to do, and like you always are going to have restrictions, and you're always going to have a situation that isn't quite perfect, but don't allow that to prevent you from working. Like, just work with whatever you have, because otherwise you'll just never do anything. You'll just get completely paralyzed. And like for instance, right now we're sitting in this studio that I've been building for like the last 2 years, and I'm always thinking about the next thing that I need to do to make it better, but I'm trying not to allow myself to get too caught up in that, and remember that the whole thing is about making music, and I have to remember to actually make music in here as well. Yeah.
That's it, isn't it? I think musicians are such perfectionists, which is great, but to an extent it's like you just need to get it done, get it out there, because otherwise you'll just be working on it for years, won't you? Like, it's never going to sound absolutely, change your mind. So
absolutely, yeah.
So the next question.
Sorry, I was just going to say that, like, that's not to say that you shouldn't have sort of pride in what you're creating and try and make it like as good as it can be. Yes, you have to do that, but you know, it's just that thing of over polishing. We always talk about the scene in Father Ted where he kind of like is trying to get one little dent out of his car and he hits it and then it cuts and then the next time the whole car is covered. That process is just really kind of appropriate for making music, because you're trying to fix one thing and you just create a whole mess of problems. So anyway.
Yeah, that's an amazing metaphor. Okay, so do you think the choice of DAWs and its kind of preference to certain tasks has kind of influenced any of your creative decisions throughout the years?
I mean, I think it does to a certain extent. The program that you're working on, the way that it does things, and whether some things are kind of very straightforward and easy and other things might be difficult, or you get your head around certain bits of the software and not others, it will influence your creative decisions. And you find yourself kind of using certain processes more, things that you enjoy and things that you find easy, and that pushes your music in certain directions. I would say that that's the case. And there's particular features of each like DAW that will kind of influence you. And I guess this kind of relates to the previous question. I guess what's important maybe is to like find something that you feel comfortable with, stick with it, you know, try to get into it to the point where the idea that you're having in your head at any one moment, you can get down into the computer quite quickly, relatively quickly, without losing the idea and kind of forgetting what you were aiming for, you know. Try to get it into the computer while you're remembering, while you're like passionate about it. And if you're capable of doing that with any of these different DAWs, then you're kind of onto something.
And I suppose it depends on the kind of music that you want to make and the kind of genres and influences that you have, right? Yeah,
it does. I mean, a lot of these bits of software are kind of, in some ways, they're geared towards making kind of like different forms of dance music. You know, they come with all these incredible like drum machines and synthesizers. And if someone out there is wanting to make more, you know, folk music or rock music, it's possible to just use a kind of more simple piece of equipment like a tape recorder or, you know, something a bit more traditional. But yeah, I mean, you're capable of doing anything that you want with one of these bits.
We're actually, I mean, it's funny that people are asking about this, because we're encountering this exact problem at the moment. I'm using a different DAW called Bitwig, which is kind of like a sort of, it's a bit like Ableton, but it's a sort of slightly new kid on the block kind of thing. And then Joe's come in with his computer and he's set up Cubase, and we're like, I'm trying to think about a way that I would do it in this program and trying to sort of explain to Joe, and he's having to reinterpret that in the way that he needs to do it. But I mean, I think the point is, as Joe says, like the ultimate aim is always the same. Like you want to do X, Y, and Z to this sound, and you know, they all have different ways of attacking those problems, but you kind of got to get a little bit deeper in really and sort of realize what it is like fundamentally that you're trying to do in terms of shaping a sound, or, you know, affecting it or changing it in whatever way you're trying to do, and what does that actually really mean in a sort of more fundamental way. And then you can kind of like zoom back a little bit and try and figure out what you need to do with the moves in the DAW or whatever. But it's you know, it's not something that's worth getting caught up on too much. I was actually thinking about, there's a guy that I follow online called Pete Cannon, who does like kind of sort of jungle music with like an Amiga, and just like literally sort of programs it in, and you can see like the kind of the lines of different events, and then he hits go and it just sounds amazing. But if I were to sit down in front of that system, I just probably wouldn't be able to make a sound out of it, kind of thing. And it just goes to show that he's just built up a workflow with that particular system, and he's just finds it very easy to do, and he finds it creatively kind of fulfilling, and that's it, you know. So like Joe says, the important thing is to just get going with it really, and just get good. And then
I mean, I remember like as a teenager, I was just obsessively working on Cubase, like, you know, pretty much every day. So I would say that like just perseverance, you know, and kind of playing around with this bit of software, like just having fun with it and making the most fun sounds that you possibly can, and kind of keeping on going, you know, digging into it. And if you're enjoying yourself, just keep going at that.
Work through the frustration.
until you get to the other side, and literally it becomes like such fun. For me, I used to play a lot of computer games and things before I really got into it, and I found myself just kind of not really kind of playing games as much, just kind of making a piece of music, because it felt so enjoyable to kind of like go into the program, make something, and then burn it on in these days, burn it onto a CD, and I could play it to my friends or whatever. It was such an enjoyable, fulfilling thing that became just what I did, kind of quite obsessively.
Yeah, and different software will suit different people. I'm in the frustration phase of Ableton at the minute, and I'll push through.
Definitely do it.
So this one is more of a schedule kind of question. So talking about your work then, guys. How many hours a week do you guys work, and how do you manage your time?
Well,
that's changed a lot over the years. I remember, like, I have like 2 children of my own now, and I try to kind of work in a more like kind of normal way, in terms of like I hang out with them a little bit in the morning. I work from mid-morning until early evening, and so I get to hang out with them a little bit before they go to bed, and that's more my schedule. But when I was kind of in my like early 20s, I would stay up like all night often.
I can confirm that.
Kind of having fun, messing with stuff. So it's definitely changed over the years. We're about to do kind of 2 weeks in the studio with a really great band, kind of helping to produce their new album. And what we'll do at that time is start at like 11 in the morning and carry on until whenever everybody really decides that they want to finish. It could be midnight or 1 in the morning, or whenever it seems to make sense and everyone's kind of knackered. So it depends on what we're doing. We're in the studio with them for 2 weeks, so we really want to try and make it all count and get as much done as we possibly can. But other days I'll do less, and I guess also you have to factor into this. Nowadays it's really, really important to kind of do a little bit towards kind of your things like your social media and all that kind of stuff, like, which doesn't really come naturally to me, but you kind of end up spending a little bit of time each day, maybe kind of tending to that as well. So yeah, our schedules change a lot. Obviously, also when we're on tour, the schedule changes completely. Again, you'll be traveling sometimes during the day and then a gig in the evening. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's about balancing that personal life as well, isn't it? And everyone's got stuff going on, whether it's kids or an extra job at a bar to make ends meet, or parents to take care of. So it's just about really pushing it, but then also just kind of factoring life as well.
It's important to have a balance, for sure. You kind of need to look after yourself at the same time as managing all of these things. I guess in terms of the part of this question that's about managing your time, like we now have like with a management team around us that helps us organize our calendar and sort all of these things out, and kind of tries to look after us a little bit in that respect as well.
Yeah, that's what you need as well. So this question, I think, is going to be similar to a lot of the people's kind of thoughts, in that this person has asked, I don't play an instrument or sing, but I'm a good lyricist. Can I still have a career in music, and how do I get musicians to take me seriously?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a lot of people, that you can think of that are very famous that would not really maybe be counted as like being a great singer. Marky Smith all springs to mind.
Yeah, or there's the guy that writes all of the lyrics for Elton John.
Yeah, that's right, Bernie Taupin. Yeah. So, you could do something like that. I mean, I think that like when it's very strange when somebody says to me that they can't sing or whatever, because I think that singers shouldn't be allowed opinions on their own voices myself. Like, I mean, you should just sing, and then like, people might really like that, or you might just have a style of delivery that is really interesting and compelling. So don't think to yourself that you can't sing. Like, I mean, I think that it's more about how you perform and how you deliver whatever the lyrics are. And if you've got great lyrics, then you're 90% there. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, also if you're in a, occasionally you do kind of songwriting sessions where there'll be a singer and someone producing at the computer, and maybe someone playing keyboards in the room, and in those kind of situations, if you have somebody that's really amazing as a lyricist and able to come up with the perfect kind of expression or a phrase to go in the middle of the song or for the chorus or whatever, that's a very like valuable, useful thing. I mean, it is more unusual, honestly, for someone to specialize solely in lyrics, but I can imagine lots of situations where that's still really, really a great thing to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if somebody was in this position, yeah, you do kind of just have to find some people around you that enjoy what you do and that can support you in like a musical endeavor. I mean, and also, again, like saying that you don't play an instrument or whatever, like you don't have to be the most amazingly trained like musician. I mean, I actually would say, like in Hot Chip, there's definitely a few of us that weren't like absolutely amazing players, but we can get something interesting out of an instrument. We can like get an interesting sound out of something. And again, you don't have to be like the most amazing, for instance, especially with things like keyboards and synthesizers, like you don't have to be tremendously, you know, sort of skilled in terms of like playing a keyboard. You can get a lot even just with a single note and a bit of rhythm or whatever. So, you know, try that out. Try finding people where, you know, where that you have some kind of, where you click musically and you can kind of like talk about music in a good way, and that you seem to share some direction. And that way, you know, you're sort of halfway into being a band, and then you have a career, you know. I'm sorry if like, if somebody feels as though they haven't been taken seriously, but it sounds as though you've just got bad people around you, basically, you know. If somebody is not prepared to do that, then just avoid those people and find the people that do take you seriously and you deserve to be taken seriously. So yeah, for sure. And often a really good track, the amount of people that have come together to make that track, including great lyricists, you know, it's there's loads of people behind the scenes. So I think, yeah, if they're a good lyricist, then amazing. There's factories of people behind like all those projects that you hear, you know, they've passed through so many hands, writers, producers, you know, just like record labels, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of filters for things to pass through. And you can, you know, you can be part of that machine if you want to be, but also, yeah, you can just do your own stuff and just get some people that allow you to flourish and allow your talent to be backed up by their talents, and then create a whole, you know, create a functioning whole. Yeah, and it's never too late to learn an instrument. My mum's been starting the guitar in lockdown, and she serenades me every night with different different songs. So, you know, it's never too late to pick up a guitar and just get some YouTube tutorials and just see where you go. So, guys, don't forget, you can still ask your questions to Hot Chip if you're watching right now. You can literally just pop them in the YouTube chat, which is somewhere here, or you can tweet it at #AskHotChip. We've got half an hour left, so plenty of time. Get those questions in. So a bit of a financial question then, boys. So which elements of your work do you find the most or least profitable, and how do you kind of find a balance? What do you do? Make it profitable, Joe.
I mean, I guess like, yeah, I mean, purely in like financial terms, for us, touring is the biggest way that we earn our income. So playing at festivals in the summer and touring around the world, that brings in like the majority of our income. But I think what's important to say about this question is that as much as possible, you should try to kind of do as many of these kind of like different potential jobs as possible. So as well as our touring income, when we're not touring, we DJ as much as we can, which is like a really, you know, useful way to kind of be earning money when we're not on tour. So having a go on a pair of CDJs or on a bit of like free computer software that is like using CDJs, it would be really beneficial, and get your head around the concepts of DJing. I mean, you know, there's various YouTube tutorials to do that, or if anyone has a friend that's kind of into it, learning how to do that. Even if you think of yourself more as a songwriter or as a musician, trying to get your head around that, it would be a really, really useful thing. And then the other amazing thing that we have is, you know, for all of the songs that we've written, we get a couple of times a year, we get a little bit of money for those songs being played on the radio around the world. So we're kind of given, you know, twice a year a little bit of cash for that, and it's really amazing thing to look through and look at, because you'll see, you know, in Bulgaria this year we earned like, you know, a few quid from a certain track being played on Bulgarian radio or whatever, and you can go around the whole world and see how that all adds up, and that's really incredible. So I think it's important for people to try and like just diversify the things that they're doing as much as they can. And then probably, I guess, an important thing also would be, if your music is used in an ad or something like that, that can also be really, really useful. So yeah, I guess, yeah, to go back to the question, whenever we can go on tour, we kind of do that, because that's the best. But yeah, apart from that, we try to just keep ourselves busy, writing songs, DJing, writing music for different kind of commercial uses. Those are definitely, and I mean, the least profitable would be like messing about in the studio, but that's kind of the most fun.
Yeah, exactly. Just speaking of that word you use, diversify, I know a lot of you in the band have your own projects going on as well. Do you find that that really helps kind of get that balance?
I think that, like, you know, it helps on both those fronts, yeah, because it gives you another string to your bow if you do want to do something like production, or you know, try and add another aspect of the industry to your kind of, to what it is that you do. But secondarily, like, there's always things that you learn when you're doing other projects that you can then bring back to, you know, if they're the main project in this case is Hot Chip, then there's things that I've done either myself or just with other musicians that I'll be like, oh, okay, this was like a little useful creative process, or this was like a useful piece of kit or gear or whatever that was fun to use, and then take that back to Hot Chip and say, oh, hey, like, we can sort of, you know, do something this way or whatever. So, so again, but that kind of feeds into, again, just like staying active and just like kind of forcing yourself into as many different situations as you can, work with lots of different people, because you're bound to pick up stuff that you don't know, and you know, find out about new techniques and yeah, just sort of new ways of approaching problems. So yeah, so really important to do that, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're going to turn to some of the live questions from the YouTube chat now that you guys have been sending in throughout the live stream. So we have the first question, hopefully on the screen. Here we go. This is from Dan. So what was it like going to the same school as Burial, Fortet, and later the XX? What was so special about the music department at Elliott School?
I mean, yeah, like, so Kieran Hebden Fortet was 2 years above me at school, and I mean, that was really important to me, kind of getting involved in music in general. Honestly, like, he took me along to the first ever gig that I ever went to when I was 14 or something, in the centre of London at a tiny little venue, and it was a relative of his just playing a little kind of punk rock show. But that was the first time I'd ever gone to a gig, and he introduced me to a lot of the music that I love. And actually, like, the first band that he was in prior to making music as Fortet, they were called Fridge, and we used to go along to their gigs in pubs around London, and it kind of taught us a lot about, you know, which pubs you could approach to play a show, and like different people to speak to, and the way to go about kind of forming a band and how to do it. You know, it gave us like a blueprint for the beginning of our career, essentially. The guy who is Burial was just in 1 year above me, and he wasn't making music as Burial at the time, but he was a very talented artist and a really lovely guy. But I didn't really speak to him about music as much, although I knew he was a big fan of hip hop and various things. And the XX joined our school a lot later. When I was leaving the school, they were joining the school. And so I didn't particularly know them, but we've since toured with them and become friends with them. And yeah, a really, really lovely bunch of people. And in terms of the music department, I mean, the school was just very kind of open to people making music. They kind of allowed people time and space and these kind of practice rooms within the music department to kind of just hang out, make music, and you could borrow amplifiers and things like that, and kind of have fun and kind of learn what you're doing. So that was really, really good. They were very like kind of good at kind of, you know,
leaving you to your own devices.
And kind of letting you have fun and be creative, you know. So I would say that's like super important. And I guess for people who are at school currently, maybe, I mean, just going and speaking to people in the music department and seeing what they have on offer, whether there is a space for you to hang out with friends and try and start making some music together, can be just a really, really good way to begin, I guess, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And kind of just starting from a young age as well must have been so amazing. And just having all the kind of equipment there and just all these amazing, crazy people around you must have been, yeah, incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely made our kind of pathway into the music industry a lot easier. I'm like very, very grateful for it.
Yeah, fantastic. So speaking of the creative process and of songwriting, what do you guys enjoy more, the kind of producing in the studio part or the performing live part? Hard question.
I mean, they're very, very different things.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like almost doesn't make sense to do it just because, the enjoyment that you're getting is kind of like triggering different receptors in your brain, really. I mean, there's kind of the adrenaline that you get from walking out on stage is very much like you're sort of going into some kind of weird musical battle or something like that. Very fired up, and that's a particular experience. And like especially some of the bigger shows that we do, whether like tens of thousands of people and stuff like that, there's no way that you don't kind of get very overawed by that, and just feel completely sort of electric when you are in those situations. But having said that, when you're in the studio and there's usually like kind of a moment where like you're into a song so much that you kind of get out of your chair and just like sort of almost like start dancing to whatever it is, whatever the moment is, and you know that you've actually made something that will just move you basically. And that is a very particular moment that happens when you're creating, and you get very, very excited by that and very kind of fulfilled by that. Because you're creating something genuinely new and something that is like, I don't know, that kind of just sort of stirs something in you in a different way. But it's not that kind of same thing of like playing with your friends on stage in front of lots of different people. So yeah, we're very, very lucky to be able to enjoy both, obviously. But at the moment we haven't been playing any shows. So this whole year we've done one show, and so we're all missing it quite a lot, and we're working as hard as we can in the studio, but it doesn't quite feel the same. We're itching to get out there again. So I hope that happens rather than later.
Yeah. Just to add to that with the kind of studio work, what would you kind of say to people that are in a similar position and they haven't been able to play live when they're just in a studio on their own at 11 p.m. at night? How do you kind of keep the motivation to go, I'm going to make an absolute tune here? I know it's just, how do you kind of, what would you say to just inspire them?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like it's definitely sometimes it's a case of like finding a new approach, finding a new, like whether it's even like just a new instrument or like borrow a friend's instrument that you've never used before or whatever, and just see how that inspires you and how that kind of changes the way that you work. Even again, like we were saying, even if you feel as though you can't necessarily play it tremendously well, it kind of doesn't matter, because if you can kind of be creative with how you approach it, and especially again with more modern producers, it might be a case of like getting like a new plugin or a new kind of like thing to sort of play around with in the computer environment. But that tends to be a way of like opening up that, if there is a little bit of a creative block, like a new toy tends to help the situations. But yeah, and I mean, again, talking about performance as well, I mean, I guess just trying to sort of like nail a little performance and just like play, just don't even worry about too much about what you're doing, just like hit record and just record for 12 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever, and then just like review and just see if there's anything that has just happened within that period of improvisation that excites you and that you can then use as a building block to make something out of. Generating material, just generate as much material as you can, because there's bound to be gold in there eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's always a bit of gold in anything. I believe we have a YouTube question that's just come in. Don't forget, guys, you can still ask your questions. You can tweet them at #AskHotChip or just pop them in the YouTube box. So I believe the YouTube question will pop up on the screen any minute. So how do you kind of build a team around you in terms of a management and a label? What's your process behind that?
We were very lucky at the start of our career. there was a guy from a great kind of independent record label. The label is called Moshi Moshi Records. And the guy that kind of founded that label, his name is Stephen Bass. And he was working as an A&R guy at the record label that I did work experience at. And he kind of quite quickly took us under his wing and started to help us with all of the really essential things that management can help with, like kind of finding you shows, finding you a booking agent who is obviously is the person that's going to help to get your live show out there and help you to organize tours, help you find someone to be your publisher, which is the person that's going to take all of the songs that you write and get them used around the world in different on the radio or in a film, or in all of those different kind of uses of your music. So he kind of like connected a lot of those dots and brought a lot of people to us and really helped us to organize ourselves, explained a lot of things to us. And I mean, we kind of stumbled into working with him. We were very fortunate, honestly. I would say that like finding that person it can be a very, very difficult thing. And again, if there is someone that's out there that is in this position, maybe we can get in contact some way and we can introduce you to people from small record labels based in London that might be able to help with those kind of things, potentially. It could be a way that we can be useful to people, because I think if you're coming from a smaller town or a place outside of London, then actually meeting that person or getting into contact with that person can be a very difficult part of the process, honestly. I think if people kind of try to build something on social media channels or whatever, put their music out there, then there are people out there looking for talented young people. So kind of broadcasting your music in those ways is a very useful thing to begin with.
Get your I mean, this is the thing, like it's it's a little bit down the line when you need someone around you anyway. I think that these days you can do, if you're prepared to work quite hard, you can do quite a lot of these things for yourself. And I mean, in a way we might advise people to do that, because especially things like just getting your name out there, getting your own friends excited, and then getting those friends to be evangelical about what you've done and tell people and kind of create a little bit of a buzz and a presence for yourself. You just need to at least be able to do that. People kind of it's very hard for people to work from nothing at all. It's good to attempt to do that. And then if you're starting to feel a bit overwhelmed and starting to feel as though there's too much for you to do by yourself, then at that point it's good to try and get some help from someone else. And a lot of these roles are starting to become quite fluid. There was traditionally there's a very sort of strong everybody stays in their lane a little bit. Here's a manager, here's a label, here's all this kind of stuff. But there's kind of a lot more sort of passing around of different roles now. So you shouldn't feel as though one person is allocated to do one thing, and you can get somebody that can help you in lots of different ways, and just find people that believe in you, and that I think it's also quite important to find someone where you're their focus. Really, there's quite a lot of big management companies and things like that out there, but sometimes you can get a little bit lost amongst the bigger acts and whatever. Having somebody who's quite dedicated to you and believes in you and what you do is quite important, I think. So and in terms of believing in yourself, they say, don't you, that they just need one fan, and then that one person will tell their friends, and it'll just kind of you just got to persevere, haven't you? Definitely.
Like I would say, like perseverance is just, I mean, it's kind of been the answer to a lot of the questions that we've had this evening, like just keeping on going and not giving up in terms of like learning a DAW, writing your songs, trying to go for gigs, trying to improve your playing or your singing, or learning to be a DJ. You just got to really kind of, it's that thing of like just practicing constantly, honestly. And eventually, I think if you do that, your kind of voice and your individuality will kind of come through, and then you become the kind of person that a manager will want to work with, because you've got an individual, unique voice, So just kind of, putting in those hours of learning your craft, I think, is pretty much like the best advice that you can give. Yeah,
definitely. We've got a YouTube question that's just come in, I believe. There we go, by Marco. So how does it work with management? Do you have differences over direction or commercial opportunities? If so, how do you resolve them?
I mean, you definitely do have different. Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's very common. And you know, friends of ours and us within our career sometimes have like had arguments with our management over whether something is the right direction. I guess, you know, if you trust the person that is your manager, then you can have like a frank discussion, verging on an argument, and resolve that.
Verging on, guys, verging on.
It's healthy and it's normal to kind of like disagree occasionally about those things. Sometimes, you know, as from an artist perspective, you might feel quite nervous about an opportunity and you might feel like you're not capable of it. But a manager's role in that situation is to kind of make you realize, or kind of be there to kind of give you a little bit of confidence and say, you can actually do this, you're capable of this. So they're kind of pushing you in a really nice way. So we've had situations like that. And we've also had situations where a manager has wanted us to do something commercial, whether it's play a certain festival or have our music involved in a certain advert, and we have disagreed. And in the end, you also have to, as an artist, realize that you're in control of your career. So you don't have to do what your manager suggests. You know, you're always able and capable of saying no to something that a manager asks you to do.
Yeah.
Well, if you think it's something that's super cheesy or you're just not into it, you can just say no.
Yeah.
And if you have a good relationship with that person, then they're obviously going to accept that. And you don't really want to be in business with somebody who won't accept that answer.
Yeah.
But you know, I guess that's about like having some trust and a kind of good communication with this person, you know, which is obviously an essential thing, because this person, if they're going to be part of your career for 20, 30 years, you're going to need to kind of be able to speak to them frankly, and they're going to need to know quite a lot about who you are and the music that you want to make and where you want to go. But yeah, we've definitely had differences over direction. I mean, we have them quite regularly.
Had one the other day, a few days ago, on the rain.
You see it a lot though, don't you? I think artists get really excited when they get signed. They'll go, yeah, we'll do whatever, yeah. And then a few years later, they're like, actually, we don't want to do that direction. We want to make music.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's actually, it's worth talking about. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have that situation where you kind of maybe get your first record deal, and you can get pressure from your record label to kind of push your music in a certain direction as well. And it's difficult sometimes to kind of, you know, remember why you got into it and what your vision is when you've got people all around you kind of making other suggestions. That is a tricky thing, but I guess you need to kind of remember who you are as an artist, and if you've got a kind of something that you feel is kind of your thing, your USP or whatever, like your individual kind of voice or sound, then hanging on to that is really, really, really super important.
Yeah, fantastic. So talking about the kind of producing process, what's more important to you guys, the hook or the arrangement?
Oh yeah,
it's a super good question.
This is one of the questions that we saw before this session started, and then I was always thinking about where you say one thing and then you immediately think it's the other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, yeah, it's definitely you need both. Obviously, you need both. But it's just one of those things where the hook is going to be very exciting. So, you know, that's the thing that's going to, like I was talking about, the whole process of like getting out of your chair or whatever. No one gets out of their chair about the arrangement.
Yeah.
Like, great arrangement, guys. Really love it. It's not something that's like super exciting or sexy or like kind of like, you know, gets people like, you know, really kind of into something. But actually, yeah, without a good arrangement, you've got no song. Like, so, you know, you definitely need to work on that. And that's one of those things where I think it's definitely one of the things where people talk about like getting caught up, never finishing something. Like they've got their loop and they've got something really exciting, but they can't like quite build it into the song, and they can't quite figure out a way to make it exist in this like 4-minute or 5-minute form or whatever it is. And honestly, that does just come through just through time and experience. I mean, we definitely fell prey to that in the early days, you know, get something that was super exciting, that was getting us all like, you know, that we knew there was a song there. Basically, we knew there was something there, but we couldn't kind of figure out how to express it in its best way, or show it in its best light. And that is a case of just sort of going for it. And I mean, you know, maybe at that point, yes, asking somebody else, getting some other further input and some further insight, because sometimes it's like a bit of a wood for the trees situation. Like, you know, something like, oh, just put the chorus at the start, which is actually worked on nearly every situation.
I guess I guess something to say also that's kind of important is when you're working with like a modern computer to make music, you know, the computer's capable of having like 100 tracks playing at the same time. You could have everything going on, but the way that you're going to make the hook of your song shine is by removing a lot of like excess stuff and just letting it kind of sing out, and it be kind of loud and proud, you know. And I think that's a feature of a lot of really good modern pop music, is they're not using like 150 tracks. They're actually using like 25, but they're super strong and simple and clear, and everything's like right there in front of you. And then people can kind of get into the song and digest it and get like hear the hook, you know, much more easily. So I'd say that's like something really good to remember. This track's not necessarily going to get better if you add in like another 3 like synthesizers, you know.
Be heavy, wield the knife with a heavy hand. Yeah, just hack away, you know, in the first case. I think that's very good advice. Yeah.
Speaking of catchy tunes and making a hook, what do you guys look for in a supporting act?
That they don't take up too much space on stage, honestly. If you've got like, you know, 9 people in the band and 4 drums, it's a difficult thing to maneuver about stage.
We also look for like people that we're going to really enjoy hanging out with, like before and after the show, because sometimes you might be seeing these same faces for like 3 weeks, and so it's really nice to find people that you get on with and can like have a drink with. And we often invite people from our support bands to come on stage with us and kind of join in and play with us. So we're looking for kind of musicians that are kind of kindred spirits. We're looking for new music that seems kind of fresh and exciting to us. Sometimes, you know, we'd be looking for a band that can help us like shift a few extra tickets in the city that we're playing in that day. There are really like a lot of different things, and I guess from a musical perspective, you're looking for a type of music that's a good kind of like sets up the audience for us playing as well. So you know, we probably wouldn't go for like a death metal band, and, you know, looking for something that's like kind of a nice like musical beginning to the whole evening. So it's
and somebody who's not going to make us look bad, like they can't be better than us.
No,
we have to factor that in. If we're threatened or we feel it's like, oh, I don't know, going after these guys, then obviously that's not possible either.
So don't be too good. So I believe we have a little YouTube question up next. Just wait for that to pop on the screen. Technical issues. There we go. We've got Ben, who says, what is your favorite Hot Chip song and why?
Over and Over. It's the biggest one. It's the best one.
Oh yeah.
It's got to be that. Yeah, I don't know. We still enjoy playing that song, to be honest. And you know, it's funny when bands have like a particularly sort of big song in their back catalogue, and sometimes they get a little bit, you know, feels a bit weird to play it. But we still genuinely enjoy playing that song, playing Ready for the Floor, playing like I Feel Better, and some of these really huge songs that we're lucky enough to have in the catalogue. But I think honestly, we tend to be excited about the newest stuff. So, you know, for instance, at the moment, my favorite Hot Chip song is this song called Positive, which is from the recent record. And I really enjoy listening to that one, really enjoy playing it live. But I'm sure that, you know, when we do the next record, I'll probably have a new favorite from that set of music as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We've got another YouTube question, I believe. Sorry. What's your one?
Well, I kind of, you know, for me, like, I'll probably, if I think of like favorite ones, I'd probably be thinking of like old ones that Alexis and I made when we were really young, that are kind of, you know, just a kind of nice memory, or like remind me of you know, a certain point in my life. Like we have our song called Boy from School. When I think about the making of that, it was written in my brother's room at our parents' house in Fulham. And, you know, talking about a very long time ago, but it's a very sweet moment. And so, yeah, I have like a real kind of personal attachment to things like that, I guess, going back.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, Joe. There's so many questions flooding and we're getting all eager. So I believe we've got the next question before we go to Carol is DJing has just been added to the GCSE music curriculum. Amazing. Do you guys have any advice for teachers and students?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I would say that the best advice I can think of is even if a student is thinking about doing GCSE DJing, which is amazing that it's being considered in that way. There, you know, if you go online, there's obviously DJ sets from a multitude of different DJs playing different styles of music. I would say it could be really, really good kind of research for that to not limit what you listen to like a certain kind of you know, tech house DJ or a garage DJ. Like, go back to people from Detroit and Chicago and New York, disco DJs and hip hop DJs and German techno DJs. You know, I would say, like, listen to the widest variety of DJs, and then you'll be learning different ways to mix music, different techniques, different strategies of building a set. Listen to people that play in a really eclectic way. Yeah, kind of, you know, it's all there, and you'll be learning from like masters of this profession, you know. So even if you're into a very particular brand of kind of house music, you're going to be a better DJ if you really like flood your brain with like all of this different kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited that DJ has been added. I think it's been a long time coming. I think there should be more music opportunities in schools, because when you're younger, you're just so affluent, and you know, you engage with things so much easier.
Yeah, totally. And it's a great skill. Like, there's a lot to learn and a lot to understand. You're learning about music theory and about different types of music, about rhythm, you know, about emotion in different kinds of songs. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So just to wrap off, it's gone really quickly, but the last question is from Carol. It's a YouTube question. If you were talking to yourself 20 years ago, what would be the main piece of advice you would give?
Think carefully before going to a second location with this guy if it's late at night. Yeah, I mean, I think that what Joe was saying actually about that DJ answer kind of is relevant, which is basically just listen to as much music as you possibly can. Like, I kind of regret doing that to a certain extent. Like, I wish that I'd listened to and become more of a fan of more music when I was like in my late teens and my early 20s. I think that I did have quite a restricted, you know, taste or whatever. And if I could have my time again, I would definitely tell myself to listen to, you know, listen more outside of those kind of restrictive walls or whatever, because you just never know how things are going to feed into your sort of in the way that you create things, and what can be inspiring and what can like change your approach to things. So yeah, listen as widely as you possibly can. Just become a completely, you know, sort of voracious consumer of all different kinds of music, because that will always stand you in good stead, and it will always be useful. And apart from anything else, it will give you a lot of joy in your life and in the future. If you start building up this collection of stuff that you're very passionate about, it's very easy to do nowadays. So yeah, so that would be one thing that I would say. And also, I guess, yeah, just talk to as many people as you possibly can, learn as much as you possibly can, never stop learning, and never feel as though you know enough, because you certainly don't. And I mean, we're still learning lots of new techniques and new approaches even now. I mean, just again, like building the studio in recent years, I've had to learn a tremendous amount of stuff that I didn't know before I started that process. And I'm sure there's going to be another bunch of stuff that we get to learn about in the next 20 years. So so just remember that you know nothing.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add, Joe, before we wrap?
I would say, like to kind of try, and this is a difficult thing, but to try to have enough self-belief to kind of not, you know, change what you naturally do to try to fit in with a current kind of trend, or, you know, whatever is the kind of hype kind of music at any one time. You know, try to have the self-belief to go with who you are naturally and make your music of that nature, you know. And you're always going to be kind of swayed by a number of different voices around you, but it definitely, if you look at the artists that have longer careers, it's always the people that have a kind of individual voice. So try to stay true to that, you know, which is a very hard thing in life in general, but I would say that's the best advice, because, you know, there are a lot of people kind of vying for your attention in this musical landscape. There are a lot of producers, and there are a lot of DJs. So yeah, having your own voice is going to really kind of mean that eventually you kind of stand out, even if it takes a little while to kind of get there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, guys. Before we wrap, you guys have a new album coming out, don't you? Any more amazing, exciting things on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah, so we have a compilation called Late Night Tales that's coming out next month. We've got a new single coming out very soon, which we're very excited about. And yeah, we've got lots of cancelled gigs. But you know, I mean, we are starting to book things. I think a lot of acts are starting to book things in for next year. We're very, very hopeful that those will take place, and we're very excited to play for people again in the UK, around the world, and you know, just sort of get back out there again. But for the moment, yeah, we're gonna stick to the rules.
Yeah.
Distance, and yeah, we just look forward to a time that we can play for you all again.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I mean, I feel inspired, and I'm pretty sure everyone watching will do as well. We're all buzzing for the compilation album, and just a massive thank you for Youth Music and for Joe and Al for joining me today. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.